Welcome back. Thank you for persisting, for traversing space and time, for making it to this point.
We're going to continue. Once again, I am still continuously Aaron.
And I am still persistently Jerry.
Yeah. So for any of you guys who have problems with object permanence...
get over yourselves.
Get over that shit.
Eat your heart out. So yeah, that's part 2 of
rousing discussions.
Yeah, dank ass grab bag. Swank mass laser tag.
Swank ass laser tag.
Frank ass tubs.
We should do laser tag. I haven't done laser tag since I was a lad.
Let's go now.
Let's go now.
Let's do an episode where we laser tag.
You guys listen to more of us talking about bullshit, and we're gonna go play laser tag.
Huh.
It's interesting, we're talking about a lot of things that are very strong ideas that just don't pan out for whatever reason. Because we were recently at a trade show in the LA area for the haunted horror community.
Yeah, horror.
Scare LA.
Spooky day.
Yeah. Scare LA. It's a trade show for just everything in the horror community, mostly like the core.
It's haunt specific.
Yeah, it's haunt specific. It's focused on building actual haunted houses and things like that.
Well, yeah, and it seems like it's come into its own that way, and like I remember the first year, because I didn't go the second year, but the first year it seemed like there were a lot of vendors and there was a lot of like horror movie merch and stuff like that, and there was definitely like a haunt presence, but now it seems like it's really coming to its own in terms of like haunt specific booths and the different aspects of that. There are classes and crafts and there are props and it seems
makeup and special effects companies like hawking their wares of like, hey, have us do the prosthetics for your actors in your haunt and things like that.
Yeah, and it does seem like it's distinctified itself from more like a fan convention like Days of the Dead and more like a makeup-specific convention like Monsterpalooza. Like, it's come into its own as the haunt show, which I think is nice.
Yeah. And there's a big pumpkin outside.
There is a big pumpkin that was so hard to get clear for a photograph. I wanted a pumpkin pic. A pump pic. But yeah, no, what were you going to say? What was your...
Well, while we were there at Scare LA, I bumped into someone we know who basically was talking about Alone.
Oh, Shaz.
And he was just saying, like, I'm getting tired of their shit. Every show they do is always a little bit worse than their last thing.
Interesting.
I mean, you've gone through more of their stuff than I have, so I don't know if that's a similar experience you've had.
Yeah. I don't think so, but I like these ones they're not as good as the first one I went to in necessarily, like they're not, I don't have that same like, like fucking, this is amazing. But I still really like what they're getting at, and it's like I feel like this is it's a 4-step process. Yeah. And I kind of want to see how it ends up. And this one was, it's like this one was smaller because it was for the show.
Yeah, at Scare LA there was the second half of the new Alone series. Mm-hmm. And it took place in like the exhibition rooms and kind of this backstagey sort of zone.
Yeah, I mean, it was in a different part of the center, more like where some of the conference rooms and stuff were. And I get the sense that that's what they gave them. Because they said, when I talked to the creators after the last one, they said sort of, or after the scavenger hunt in January, they sort of said, they asked us to do one of these last year at Scare LA. And they just said, like, the nature of what they do is... it's hard to put tons of people through. It's not like some of the other fold-up mazes that, that are at that convention, because there are some other things. But that was their sort of featured event, was like, we have an Alone, walk through. And they made it work, and they didn't seem, I guess, they weren't bugged that they couldn't get tons of people through in a day. Yeah. But yeah, so I get the sense that they stuck with it, and they sort of facilitated that. And I, I mean, they're not... the same kind of haunt. You know, it's not always about scary. I mean, these ones, I feel like it'll always be, only time will tell, you know, it's like, oh, we'll only know in October, but I feel like the October show will always be the centerpiece, the sort of piece de resistance.
And these are all like appetizers?
Yeah, kind of, and because again, I know a little bit about their last cycle. It's like the first thing I went to of theirs was the main event, you know, sort of in October last year. That's the one that runs for the month. You know, they had a sponsor. It was in an actual, you know, 2 or 3 story. It was an actual building gallery space downtown, and they were there for more than, you know, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's when they can really start set designing and you know, putting stuff up and really making a fixture out of it, you know.
Yeah.
And building that show. I feel like this stuff, with what they did last year, it seems like they sort of came up with this sort of a few part story, and they sort of played that out. And the show in October was fucking fantastic. But some of the other stuff was like, there was one like preview event that was more just sort of an eerie meditation thing, and then we went to the scavenger hunt, which was cool, if not, you know, rough around the edges and a little bit, you know, it wasn't as nuts as the actual experiment was, but it was still cool. You know, or at least to me, it was still cool. You know, requiring of some patience. You know, it was an experiment, and it was sort of thrown together with not a ton of time to spare. And it seems like this time they've taken that concept of like, let's do a few parts to this storyline, and actually, you know, plan out how these events would work. And it seems like, you know, it's they're getting their legs. I feel like each year they get their legs more in a different way. I didn't see the first show, but I heard the first show was more traditional, a little more like you have a flashlight, you're in just sort of the basement of this old building, and you don't know where people are going to come from.
The first one felt more, or from what I heard, it sounds like the first one was more like a traditional kind of escape room thing.
Not necessarily an escape room like with intense amounts of puzzles, but I don't know. There were more Blackout comparisons. I don't think it was ever as aggressive, as actively aggressive in its tone or its, you know, aesthetics as Blackout is, but you know, people were like, oh yeah, it's kind of like Blackout, you know, maybe a bit eerier, but still, you know, it's like, oh, they know your name and they'll do stuff. There was one room I heard about that I heard was really cool, where they took you and they stood you in the middle of a room for way too long in the dark, and then hit the lights, and just tons of people in robes were standing around you.
Oh fuck!
So like that was cool. I didn't get to see that show to know, but and then the second year when they did all the Enola stuff, everyone I know who went to that show said like, this is okay. Now they've found what Alone is. Like, you know, they've found this strange, surreal, almost Lynchian thing that's not 100% horror, but there is horror and some of the darker emotions involved with it.
But this new cycle, the whole Unweave the Rainbow, like, I don't know, it feels like it keeps on teasing about gearing up to something that I honestly don't know if it's going to pan out or not.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Because, like, you know, this new thing at Scare LA, it's, you know, it was another go into the big, dark, dimly lit with some colored lights conference room. Everybody sits under another kind of gauzy, sort of pearly sheet. And these 3 actors were telling this basically this multi-angled story about a guy in an aquarium watching an octopus in a tank, and a mom nearby remarking on the guy. And so it was like there was like one actress that was just giving kind of like a objective point of view of the scene. There was an actor that was narrating the internal thoughts of the guy looking at the octopus in the tank, and he sounded like he was having like a tiny acid flashback. And then there was the thoughts of a mom just like wondering where her kid is and just kind of being a little weirded out by the guy staring at the octopus. And then people were selectively pulled out from under the sheet with the light shining on them, and then you kind of crawled on your hands and knees through this pitch black sort of labyrinthine little tunnel.
I thought that was cool. I mean, most of the second installment was in total darkness, which just logistically is like, I don't know if they must have some kind of night vision set up because, people are maneuvering you in the dark.
Yeah.
And
as you were crawling through the tunnel or whatever it was, you felt hands kind of grasp you here and there.
Yeah, I mean, as I was crawling through, another body sort of intertwined with my outside arm and sort of joined with me in that, and then, started showering me in these like cardboard shavings.
Yeah.
Whatever was coating the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these two so far, I mean, they're interesting, and like these, they're not, I do want more, I do want the rushes and the stuff that happened in the main show, but
and I guess more of the individual, I guess that's something that's missing for me, is like that sense of individualized set piece. Like, to me, to walk into a pitch black room and have the light suddenly jump on and you're surrounded by people alone, that's interesting to me. Coming into, the dance party room or getting thrown in a chair, it's like there were the diffusion and the refraction ones felt different because there wasn't a lot of one-on-one in a sense.
Yeah,
and I think that's what made the dance party room at Diffusion so, I guess, prominent in my memory, because it was the one time with me on the table and the dancer on the table, like, really, really looking into my eyes and just holding that gaze for a while. Mm-hmm. It felt like this is the one time where this haunt is really getting at me, and specifically to me in a deeper way.
Yeah, and I'm looking for that too with these, because like, I feel positively towards them. Like, I like the stuff that they're doing, but that is what I'm craving from these now. It's like, I really hope that as they build, or at least, when October hits, I really hope that it is that, like, this is the experience designed for you to walk through alone.
Yeah.
No exceptions. It's... And also, the Scare LA one was free.
Yeah.
So I always
the Scare LA one was free with a ticket to the con.
Yeah, so I always sort of... I cut slack for free events.
Yeah, because you get the sense like this was a demo that... Yeah, they worked it into their multi-part thing they're trying to do, but this was also like, a demo that the con wanted them to do. Yeah,
and so I get the sense that this was probably not where most of the resources went.
Yeah.
And given that, I mean, I enjoyed tripping out to colored lights and just the general weirdness. Mm. But yeah, I do want it to become more... I want to feel the hand more strongly, and I do want to be alone more strongly.
Yeah.
So, it's like I enjoyed myself on Sunday most definitely, but yeah, it's like I am starting to crave all the rush that was, the Enola experience, the Enola cycle, because that was, and like, that was, maybe it's just because it was the first one, but it was also like, right now they're doing a lot with, we have a lot of people, and we're sort of separating you and then putting you back together and stuff like that. Whereas, at least the show I went to last year was, we came in 5 at a time from the waiting area of the alleyway, and pretty soon each of us was abducted, and from then on out it was just us and them, us and whoever should be in the next room. And they had 2 stories worth, they had a whole building's worth, so there was room after room after room. It was like an hour-long experience. So, like, this one, I think they said it was like a 20-minute on Sunday. The one in June was maybe like a half hour plus buffer time.
Yeah, it was supposed to, like, the June one was supposed to be a half hour. It felt longer.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just because of buffer.
Yeah.
Because, you were sitting in that theater and parceling people in.
Yeah.
Whereas I get the sense, again, I don't know, you never know, but I think that's probably, since the first show, the first Alone, you know, it was in October during haunt season. The second main show was in October during haunt season. This one culminates in October during haunt season. I feel like that's when all the big stuff is going to come out. And, you know...
And we saw the September one, too, to see if the September one is going to be a step up or what, or if that's going to be a bigger one, or if it's going to be, you know, more on the scale or the scope of what the June one was. Mm-hmm. And then we'll see if the October one is, you know, bigger than all of that or what.
And I sort of feel like, you know, since this is still niche-y, you know, June, August... September, you're getting closer, but still, it's like the people who are going to go do this at those times of year would probably have to be into this kind of thing more than just, oh, it's Halloween time. Like, because Alone isn't a Halloween event, or it's not a Halloween-specific event. Like, it would work theoretically anytime, but
yeah.
I imagine they'll get more traffic than they would have
on you know, October haunt season proper.
Yeah, it's like when Blackout does a show in
I'm trying to imagine
February.
what, like, a year-round Alone theme park would be like.
The Alone theme park would be a very strange proposal.
Yeah.
And it would have a very slow throughput.
Yeah.
It would be cool, but it would, you know, it's like one at a time.
I think at some point, like, I went to Disneyland with some friends, and we kept on joking about the idea of Sadland. A theme park called Sadland.
Just a bunch of more morbid rides.
Yeah, you know, it's like
just downtrodden.
Like, I try to think of like where this riff went, but we had ideas of like, you know, you would have a ride like you'd have like a ride where it's like you get on a roller coaster and it drives through a bunch of scenes of atrocities throughout human history, or there would be, like, a bunch of costume characters that were all very sad, that would, you know, like, very depressed-looking costume characters that you could take photos with. And, like, we had the idea, like, what would be hilarious about Sadland is if, like, as a theme park, it was all really great and really cool, and there's a lot of production value, and the rides were all really well designed and really fun, but all of the trappings and all of the design and all of the dressing would just be super depressing.
Just a lot of money spent on some really depressing scenery.
Yeah.
So instead of a tram tour, you just take a... Oh, you could have a small ride.
Yeah.
Just with everyone doing a funeral.
Yeah. It's just a funeral dirge playing as the song.
Just in every language.
Yeah.
That would be...
You just ride on a boat through... And all the music is just the Lacrimosa.
Yeah, and at a certain point it all starts to kind of detune, because even the band's not really that happy.
Can't keep it up.
Yeah. Sadland.
Yeah.
Build it.
Build it, they will come.
That and Todd's Disneyland.
No, because Todd's Disneyland burned down because Gabe Jr. ran amok.
That's right. But yeah, no, I mean, I am a fan. I feel like, you know, it's like Blackout does a show in February or something, or they've done shows outside of haunt season.
They've done a Valentine's show.
Yeah, where just people aggressively love you. It's like give you bear hugs and shit. But they've done shows outside of haunt season, and those are for Blackout fans. You know, and Blackout has fans. And I feel like the first few parts of the sequence are for Alone fans, just like the Scavenger Hunt was for Alone fans. And I think it's like for people who are into haunts, that may be a little confusing. Because I know some people whose first Alone experience, your first Alone experience, and like my friend Ben, who we saw at Scare Away.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't see Ben at Scare Away.
He was at the basement booth for the escape room for the basement.
Oh. I didn't see him.
Okay, well, he was.
But I did see him at the Scavenger Hunt.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, that being the first experience, it's like, yeah, that's not... It's indicative of some of the things that are cool about Alone, that are creative about Alone, but it's not what... It didn't necessarily embody all that stuff where I was like, you have to fucking see this. Like, this is so great. And I feel like these ones are like, yeah, these have some of the things that are really cool about this, and it's cool for fans, but even me, it's like, I enjoyed the first two, but even I'm like, alright, now let's kick it into high gear. Like, I want to do.
I want the full thing.
I want the rushes of exploring fear and loneliness and these strange situations to be put in, and also they also got to have actors and stuff. These people get paid, and there are a lot of rooms and a lot of actors, so I feel like that's where most of the resources will go. I get this inkling that's when the big one is October, or at least I hope so.
We will see.
So that's sort of my theory right now is like all bets are off, or the jury will remain kind of in the corridor until that one comes.
Yeah.
And they've also got have you read about Intimate?
No, what's Intimate?
They have a new section on their website.
Oh, that's right. I know that was something that I remember reading about Intimate as being like a thing that they were planning or working on. Is that open now or what?
Soon, I guess. They have a section on their website that just basically explains what it is. It's like it's this new thing. They're going to do it, I think, in January, and they describe it as like a multi-day experience designed for one person, no exceptions, and basically you have to come in for a physical interview. They'll contact and interview like family, co-workers. They'll do a background check, and they'll design an experience around you that will take you to the basically the gist of the paragraph was like you'll go into the depths of aloneness.
Wow. Those
things that Alone likes to bring and explore and stuff like that, and you'll descend deep into those. So yeah, that one I was reading about it, and I started to get nervous again. I was like, that sounds really intense.
Yeah. My question is, how are they going to get your family members to I guess give them what they need for it?
Yeah. I'm curious. I mean, I imagine that there's at least there'll probably be at least some minor briefing from either you or
because I'm remembering that scene in Eternal Sunshine where the cards are sent out and being like, hey, your friend has just recently had this relationship expunged from their memory. Don't mention it to them ever again. I imagine that would be really fucking weird to receive that. So imagine like getting that message from Alone being like, yeah, your friend signed up for Alone Intimate. We're going to ask you some personal questions about them. And they totally signed up for this. So it's like, if you don't know what Alone is,
yeah,
like imagine that call coming to you.
Yeah,
you would get particularly weirded out, and you would be very concerned for whoever is purportedly signed up for this.
Yeah, yes, you would. So I don't know how they're going to handle that. And right now it basically says, if you go to aloneexperience.com, you click on Intimate, the letters are upside down and backwards.
Huh.
There's the breakdown, it's just a couple paragraphs, and then it basically says more info soon, and you can sign up for the newsletter to get the info as soon as it comes out. Yeah. And so that sounds wicked.
It does. It sounds like it would be fucking expensive, though.
It might be.
And they would have to find some way to schedule it where it's like, you don't want to be like in the middle of work and then suddenly you have to just leave your job to go. What?
Suddenly somebody kidnaps you.
Yeah, somebody kidnaps you, or just like you're in a place where you're 100% not ready for it. So it's like, oh my, you're going on the Alone experience. Like, this is freaking me out, and also I have an actual life I'm supposed to be managing back home.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that whatever the day is that you're gonna. I gotta imagine whatever the experience designed around you is.
They'll schedule it for Arbor Day.
Yeah, everybody gets that day off.
Yeah,
I gotta imagine whatever your go time is, whenever you're going to walk into whatever experience has been cobbled out of this information. I'm sure they'll coordinate a day with you somehow. I mean, especially, I don't know how limited it's going to be, and I don't know what it's going to cost, but it seems like for that experience, if it's tailored to you, they'll find a way to make sure that you can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, not in the same way, but, the scavenger hunt was like, it's this day. If you want to come, have this day free, So, that sounds cool. And I just like... I like them generally. I always feel good-natured about them just because, you know, it's creative and it's a different side of this.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I do share some of the, like, yeah, I do want this to pick up. And I hope, you know, to be wowed by the October. Because that's the thing. Is like I want to be fully immersed. And, like, these first two, I've been intermittently immersed. But, you know, the big show was fully, like, I was there. I was just in my body in those rooms, you know.
Yeah.
And there was also no expectation, and I was very nervous, you know, because it was my first time ever doing one. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the real test, especially, you know, perhaps for you or for anybody, you know, who's yet to see, you know, a main show, I feel like the real test will come when the October show rolls around.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
And I you know, I like their concepts and stuff like that. It's been very lo-fi thus far.
Yeah,
you know,
they've been doing a lot with just simple things like, you know, like the sheet over your head with a pulsing colored light in your face is interesting, and it's, I don't know. I mean, they sustain those elements or those moments for so long. It's like you can't. Those moments were just the sheet over your head and the flashing light. That only really worked for me in the June show because it's like I felt like I was alone. I felt like I was specifically put in that room with the sheet over me alone. There was all this like noise rock going on to really make it feel hypnotic, and after a while, I was there to bake long enough for me to really feel like I was being kind of like put into a trance. Whereas this last one, where there was an element like, you know, the group bit with the sheet and the colored lights was a group bit, and there was the octopus story being read out where it was, you know, it felt like a different animal entirely, and it didn't give me that same, I guess, sense of trance or sense of hypnosis going on.
Yeah.
And then there was a part where they shove you, you know, you've crawled through the maze, and then somebody puts you against a wall with another sheet over your head, and they make you hold a light flashing in your face with the sheet over you.
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't do that?
No, I think that there's subtle tweaks and differences, and I think we touched on that on the June show too. Is I think certain details change here and there depending on where you are, what's going on elsewhere. Because I was never made to hold a light and shine it in my face.
Yeah. I was put against the corner with another sheet over my head, and they have a little tiny like colored strobe that I was supposed to hold towards me, and I was just sort of, you know, pressed up against the wall for a little bit.
Mm.
And that felt different because I had just seen, it was actually Erica, I had just seen Erica like get put through the process of that room and then moved on through a door. Mm. So it just like, I don't know, I just felt like kind of this oddly different thing.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just a matter of having to stay tuned.
Yeah. I think, but, you know, that's...
Well, on the topic of staying tuned, is there anything in the coming months that you're excited for?
Oh, man. I don't know. It's getting to be haunt season, and that's it, you know. It's a big part of my life, so I'm getting excited for that. I mean, that's what I don't know, just in general life, that's sort of what I'm working on right now is finding things to be excited for.
Yeah.
Also, just because, you know, like it's hard to get excited for stuff because, you know, things let you down sometimes, man.
Yeah.
So,
True Detective let a lot of people down.
A lot of people down. I am tentatively excited for the Goosebumps movie just because I grew up reading and loving those.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. I didn't see the trailer. I can imagine it being fun and campy.
Yeah,
with Jack Black at the helm, but it's also like, I mean, I remember as a kid, the Goosebumps books really did kind of creep me out.
Yeah,
they were kind of engrossing. So I don't know if like having them be campy if having the Goosebumps movie be campy with an R.L. Stine character is more like for the nostalgic fans and less, you know, for kids today, where it's like, you know, we're making a really good, you know, I feel like the project is more geared towards getting people who are nostalgic for Goosebumps and less about like, hey, you know, there's a whole new generation of kids and we're going to make for them a horror movie for kids to enjoy.
Yeah, and I do. I wish Poltergeist had succeeded at that. Yeah, I get that concern, and I've seen the trailer, and I mean, off the bat, it's like I don't know how scary or not it would be, or if it'll just be more of an adventure. But it does look a bit more, a little less goofy than the show was. Because I really liked the show as a kid, but the show is, stiff and there's some cool effects here and there. But, the shows could be, sort of stiff and wide-eyed. And this, it tickles me for different reasons, but I might be that, I am that sort of like, oh, I remember I used to love Goosebumps, haha. Like, so it's worked for me so far, getting my interest. Partly, too, I mean, I love Jack Black anyway, but also just, like, the way he seems to be playing R.L. Stine tickles me so. Because he almost looks like a weird Truman Capote, just who happens to now be reclusive and has authored a great many, spooky books about 12-year-olds.
I wonder how the real R.L. Stine feels about this.
He seems supportive.
The IRL Stein.
Yeah. Yeah, IRA. Well done.
Yeah.
I mean, everything he's said about it has been, reasonably positive.
Jack Black looks just like him. Sometimes
exactly.
I would visit the set. I think he was me, and I would get very upset.
He's talked about it a good amount of times, and I know he's at least seen a few cuts of it. And he's like, yeah, no. It seems positive. I don't know. You can never tell, I guess, with those things. But I guess he wouldn't have to talk as many times as he has. Also, I mean, just the premise kind of reminds me of one of the stories anyway. It's kind of like the typewriter one where the kid, everything he writes comes to life.
Oh.
Because at least in the premise for the movie...
I remember there was a Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that was similar to that, oddly enough.
I think I remember this too. I gotta go back and revisit that show too. Because some of those were legit creepy, and when you have 12-year-olds doing all this stuff, like there is a tendency for them to get a little like a little campy, in that way. But there were some that were legit creepy on Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, I do remember that, and that was something that was interesting to me. It's like there would occasionally be Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes that were less scary than others, but it's like. It felt like with Are You Afraid of the Dark, the campiness was a bug and not necessarily a feature.
Yeah.
The campiness was coming from it being like, a low-budget Canadian show with a bunch of, kid actors that, were very green. And that's why Are You Afraid of the Dark had the campiness, whereas the point of Are You Afraid of the Dark was to actually be a horror show for kids.
Yeah, and so
it actually still was scary at times.
Yeah, you had that danger still, because if you're intentionally campy, everything is safe.
Yeah.
And I don't know how Goosebumps will turn out in that light or not. But the premise I thought was neat, because it's all about it's like this kid moves into. They're always moving in Goosebumps books. It's like they move into a new house, and it just so happens that this reclusive writer lives next door with his daughter. And, they go in the house one day, and they find all his manuscripts or whatever, and they, open one, and, one of the monsters escapes or something like that. And it kind of reminded me of that.
The house is a monster.
Yeah, probably. Dead house. But yeah, so and it reminded me of that typewriter episode that they did on the show.
Yeah.
And I think was a book as well. So, I don't know. I'm tentatively excited for that. I'm kind of just excited to continue. I just discovered a couple things. Like I said, I just started watching Marin and checking out his comedy, and I'm really liking that vibe.
I saw some early Mark Maron comedy not that long ago, from his 90s stuff that was just on a rerun on HBO.
He looks he just seems like a totally different person.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Mark Maron is one of the lucky few people who, that dude was, born to be 50. Because he makes 50 look so fucking good. He's got the salt and pepper, he's got the glasses, the sort of... the Van Dyke, and he's making it work, and he's also cleaned up, Yeah. And the show, it comes over into his comedy, too.
What was hilarious was, his 90s stand-up bit. He was joking about antidepressants, and he was just I had a friend that was like, she said that she was on antidepressants. I was like, what is that? And he basically, at one point he says, you're taking a drug that doesn't get you high. What is that? He was just like acting cartoonishly incredulous about the concept of taking a drug but not to get high.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh yeah, you had a problem, didn't you?
A lot of problems.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I've found very cool about his show. And I haven't heard all of his stand-ups, but I heard Thinky Pain. I listened to the most recent one. And just thinking about stand-up comedy, that's the vibe I've gravitated toward as I've grown older, is like, I like the comics who get up on stage and will sort of just kind of talk. And it's not necessarily jokes. It's just, you know, kind of observations about life and injecting humor into that. And it's like, I really like a lot of Louis C.K.'s stuff, but Louis C.K. has a bit more of an aggressive energy, whereas some of the more recent Mark Maron, and it bleeds over into the show too, is like, it's kind of a guy sorting out his problems and kind of acknowledging some of his misanthropic tendencies, but in a way that's not... It's like on the show, you know, it's like it's not always flattering to him or to any number of characters, and that's used for humor, but also, you know, it seems like he's really working through some of these issues in earnest. And there's a certain level of earnestness and a sort of, you know... Honesty that comes with that, where it's not quite as in your face and it's not quite as aggressive, and I kind of like that. Like, it makes it kind of closer to the ground. It's like, it's not being like, yeah, I'm fucked up, but that's cool. It's like, yeah, I'm fucked up and I'm trying not to be fucked up, and it can be funny, but it's still fucked up and I'm trying to get better, you know?
Yeah.
And I think he's made a nice little show out of that, and you know, the comedy too, you know, reflects that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been vibing on that lately.
I'm gonna have to check that out. It feels like.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's not crazy in your face, you know, but it's, you know, and it gets better over time as it hits a rhythm. But, you know, I enjoy, and they're bite sized too. I found I quite enjoy these, you know, 22-minute. A 22-minute show is a lot easier to watch over the course of a day, especially if you just need to kind of chill out for a second.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I can hang with Mark for 20 minutes and see what you know...
See what he's up to.
What hijinks ensue, you know, before, you know, going back to whatever thing. Or, you know, the Wet Hot Gang.
Yeah. The Wet Hot Gang.
The Wet Hot Gang.
The Wet Hot Gang sounds like a really gross 90s hip-hop troupe. That didn't last very long.
The Wet Hot Gang. And now I'm just thinking of the Sugar Hill Gang.
Oh, yeah.
I never really liked their version of Apache. I gotta tell you, everybody goes like, oh yeah, Tonto, jump on it. And I'm like, no. Like, it's not. For some reason, I don't like that version.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that is better, is just the instrumental without the call and response stuff going on.
Yeah. But yeah, True Detective. I
can't talk about True Detective without thinking of the Father John Misty song True Affection. It's just like the phonemes are too similar. It gets stuck in my head.
True Detective. Hey, it seems like a lot of those guys on that show need to have a crazy conversation.
Yeah. And Father John Misty was on an original song that closed out the first season, it turns out.
Like the last episode, or just was over the credits also?
I think it was over the credits of the last episode specifically.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah. He does there is a great video of him online just mixing a drink and scat singing.
I would have to see this.
It's for some kind of liquor, but like
I'm really excited because I'm going to see Father John Misty in October.
Lucky Duckling.
Yeah, so here's hoping for a good show. Apparently, he's really fun live.
From everything I've seen, it seems like he's a showman.
Yeah, I heard a story of someone. I think it was like at Coachella or some music festival. Someone threw like one of those like ride along pony sticks that had a unicorn head on it in his face. And in between songs, he like took it from the audience and made out with the fake unicorn head, and then threw it back into the audience and made a "call me" sign. And then like a few weeks or a few months later, he tweeted, "That fucking unicorn still hasn't called me back."
I think I've seen footage of this show or something.
Yeah.
This sounds very familiar. He's a kooky cat, man.
Yeah.
Like, he seems like one of those dudes who's like very real, but you either get along with him or you don't. He seems like he's got a bit of that, like, you know, wildfire.
Yeah.
And his show, like, every performance I've ever seen, at least recorded, you know, seems like he would be great to watch live, and he seems like he's got a lot of energy and a lot of presence.
Yeah, and he's kind of half in between the musics. He does do some genuine, like, basically interstitial comedy.
Oh yeah, seems very animated.
Yeah.
And I mean, even during the more serious songs, he still brings a sort of, you know, sardonic boisterousness.
If there was a word to describe Father John Misty's like character in just music and his sort of offstage persona, it would be a good word. And I would like to use that word if I could. Rye is the word.
Rye, yeah, like a bread in a deli.
Exactly, like that man bread.
Well, and he's got that like mane and the big old beard, and
yeah,
he's just always him, man. He's always Father John Misty.
He's very good at like portraying a guy that's just kind of, I don't want to say tired, but just kind of like an arch sort of, you know, almost like existentialist kind of like, yeah, world's pretty fucked up. That's kind of funny. Anyway, I'm just gonna go, you know, do whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly. That is kind of the nutshell persona of FJM.
Yeah,
Fujum.
You saw AWOL Nation recently.
I did. I went. I got my passport and took a trip to the AWOL Nation, and
you're now a foreign national.
I'm allowed to bring fruits in and out of the country without being stopped and questioned.
How was the Nations?
Oh, it's great. I mean, they put on a terrific show. They're coming back, I think, in October for like the 2.0 leg of the tour. But yeah, I mean, their energy is fantastic, and like, I mean, their stage show is pretty simple. Like, it's, you know, they have their big AN backdrop and they have a lot of lights and stuff. And it was almost interesting because they had a lot of fog effects and a lot of lights. And it almost forced you to put your camera away because you were only going to get silhouettes. Like, you could see, but the cameras get silhouettes.
Yeah.
So it was like everyone was really responsive. It's a very responsive crowd, I got to say. Like, they can engage a crowd that's in a way that's hard to do here. So, yeah, I mean, the set list was good. There was, you know, some oldies, some new stuff, you know. It was pretty great. They put on a really good show, and they sounded good, you know. Cool. And you know, because of the nature of the music, you know, transitioning from the records to live, like, there is a definite difference. You know, it's more robust in the live setting. There are more guitars, and there's more, you know, it's a little heavier and a little higher energy, you know, at the show.
Nice.
So it was G-ass. It was a G-ass show.
Nice. To
borrow a phrase I haven't used in 10 years. G-ass.
G-ass. It was a gas show.
It was a gas. Yeah. Jumpin' Jack Frass.
It's a G-ass.
G-ass.
What did I see recently? I saw Mountain Goats back in May.
How were they?
It was cool. It was at the Mayan, so it felt nice and kind of intimate in a sense. You know, there were a lot of people that were just doing standing room, but you know, we were up in the block seats in the balcony, and you know, you did, because it is a smaller venue and it wasn't super packed. It just felt, it had that right balance of like feeling like you were kind of connected to John Darnielle, because you know, his musical stylings are very personal, and he is the kind of guy that he's the kind of guy that would not fill an arena.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like he couldn't draw a crowd that big, but just because, you know, if you're listening to a you know, a Mountain Goats track, you feel like it's kind of getting at your heart in a very kind of down to earth way. Like I would contrast him with Neutral Milk Hotel, because we saw Neutral Milk Hotel at the Hollywood Bowl, and because the Neutral Milk Hotel can get more bombastic or can get more poetic and isn't as grounded in a sense, because John Darnielle's lyrics are very poetic in their own right, but there is a grounded kind of poetry. Mm. Whereas Neutral Milk Hotel gets more expansive and gets more stretched out and spread out. So Neutral Milk Hotel can do the Hollywood Bowl, and John Darnielle can do the Mayan, and both of them can play to those venues in that kind of setting really well to give a very cool, fun live performance.
So would you say that Neutral Milk Hotel packed the Hollywood Bowl?
It looked like a big crowd. The place did look actually pretty full.
Dank Ass Stubs! I was waiting to make a joke. It's good. I was just at the Mayan, but not really. I was right next door to the Mayan.
Okay, because I was curious. When you started a sentence with, I was just there, but not really. I was just like, are you fucking lying to me?
Well, no. It's like, I went to see Shaky Graves at the Belasco.
Which is right by it.
Which is right, literally next door. It is the next building. And
next door to the Belasco is a Subway.
Is it really?
I don't know.
I could have eaten fresh.
Oh, you could have. I'm so sorry. You could have gotten that good yoga mat bread.
Yoga mat bread. And
that yoga mat child porn bust bread.
Dude, that is... not that I had a lot of faith in... I never really thought about Jared Fogle in any way, except for oh yeah, he's that guy who's vaguely good-natured from Subway who lost weight.
Yeah.
Just nothing is sacred. Nothing is sacred.
Not even the sandwich man.
No, it's not that nothing is sacred.
Not even our sandwich man are sacred.
Everything is a letdown at some point. It seems like it's even you, dude.
But
even you.
Let's get real. Jared Fogle had the look of the dude that would be dancing with his daughter at a purity ball.
Did that happen?
No, because I don't think Jared Fogle has kids, but he has the look of one of those guys.
Yeah, I guess. I'm just under every stone is something terrible, and I guess that's what we're learning as the information age grows more expansive. Is that I don't know, everybody fucked up, but some people, man, Jared, dude, some of those stipulations are horrifying.
Yeah.
Anyway. Dank goes dark.
Dank goes dark.
Yeah,
Dank after dark.
No, yeah, I saw Shaky Graves at the Belasco, and he puts on a fantastic show. He was supposed to be at the Music Box at the Fonda.
Wait, Shaky Graves is one man? And not a band?
Shaky Graves is a guy.
Who is the Shaky Graves?
Yeah, and it's actually very amusing to hear him tell the story. There are a few different videos and interviews where he tells the story. His name is Alejandro Rose Garcia, but he goes by Shaky Graves, and I guess it was just because he and some friends were on a camping trip. He's from Texas. He's from Austin or something like that. And I guess they were all camping out, and this homeless guy wandered up, and they were just kind of hanging out. And he was like, "Oh, you gotta try." He had this bottle of something. He's like, "Oh, you gotta try my whiskey. It's really good." And so they kind of humored him and pretended, and he sort of wandered off and said something about spooky wagons. And so they were like, "Spooky wagons? That sounds like a blues man's name." So they all later on that night gave each other old blues man names. So there was I can't remember what he said the other ones were, but there was spooky wagons and rusty doors or something like that. And then the one dude's little brother who's asleep in the tent got to be droopy wieners. and he got Shaky Graves. And he was he pulled out the guitar, the next day, somewhere a little more public, and was just noodling around there, yeah, it's great, what are you called? And he just sort of spat out Shaky Graves, and it stuck. And then people were walking by me what's up, Shaky? Love the music.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, it just came out of this camping trip, and kind of riffing off this kind of crazy homeless dude, and. So yeah, Shaky Graves is one guy, and a lot of the videos you'll see online, which are great. He's one of those dudes who just, when he's playing, you really get the sense that he's just the vessel for the music. There's just, he's locked into, and he's doing this finger picking while singing with the utmost soul, and you know, doing a suitcase drum, like it's all over the place. Not all over the place, but you know, he's doing lots of things at once, and just it's all locked together. But during his live show at the Belasco, he did a good job kind of oscillating, because he has a drummer right now. He has a guy called Boo, who is his drummer.
Shaky Graves and Boo.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of cute that way. And so, like, you know, he did parts of the show just himself with him and just the suitcase drum. Then he had Boo come out, and then he also had Pat O'Connor come out for some of the songs. So it went from being a solo to a 2-piece to a 3-piece, and it kind of went between those a few times, which was really cool. And they were all, you know, where they needed to be, and it was all, like, really cool and special, and he sounded great, and his set was great. And, you know, there are always some songs that aren't recorded. You know, he's got a lot of songs that are, you know, kind of just live songs. So next time he's in town, we should go, because he's fucking fantastic. And I love his music. Like, he's got a really, he kind of does anything dusty, as sort of how I describe it, because it's like some of it's sort of bluesy, some of it's you know, rock and roll, sort of garagey stuff. Some of it is, you know, almost country or bluegrass inspired. You know,
it's just general sounds of dust.
Yeah, sounds of dust. You know, I guess they call that Americana or whatever. But, and you know, it just sounds real natural. You know, he's got that soul of a bluesman.
Cool.
So Shaky was
he's a blues man.
Was BA.
I love Cornel West, because he will just describe people as blues man, but of different things.
Just like a blues man of making pancakes.
Well, like, for instance, I actually, if I'm remembering correctly, Cornel West, he was not deemed this by himself. He was called this because, you know, he had a friendship with B.B. King, and B.B. King labeled him as such, and B.B. King labeled him a blues man of the mind.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know, right?
I would love to be a blues man of the mind.
Shouts out again to Cornel West, who is in jail in Ferguson.
What?
Right now. He went to Ferguson for the march for the anniversary of the killing of Mike Brown, and he got arrested.
Wow, is it already the anniversary?
Yeah.
Good golly, Miss Molly.
I know. Great balls of fire.
Great balls of Billy Squire. Yeah. Ooh. Shaky Graves is supposed to play,
but it's
at
cool.
The music
like,
box.
Cornel West, he going to prison is a thing he does.
Does he really?
I mean, like,
just frequently. Just like, yeah, I'm probably gonna go to jail today.
I mean, going to jail going to jail for Cornel West is collateral damage of him doing shit.
All right.
It's just like, well, I'm going to go do shit to call out the horrible hypocrisies of our culture. Probably going to go to jail, but whatever.
Hey, man, he's on the cutting edge. He's on the front line.
That's what Cornel West was, just a 17-year-old girl. It's like, I'm going to go protest the police state, probably go to prison, whatever. I'll call you, like, when I get out.
BRB.
BRB.
BRB going to jail. BRB and just, like, a little prison man emoji.
It's just like a text to mom. It's like, honey, where are you? Protesting the horrible hypocrisies of the American police state, going to jail, BRB.
Fist emoji, cop emoji, jail emoji, thumbs up.
And then 100.
Yeah, you just love that 100, dude.
I love that 100, and I love that skull.
You do. You do.
My favorite emojis.
Why the 100?
My favorite emojis that are not based emojis.
I feel like this should be a segment of the show. It's just like Aaron's favorite emojis.
Everyone's about the poop emoji. No, I'm into the skull, the 100, and all of Lil B's emojis.
I feel like you should do an emoji segment every show where you just explain which one's your favorite and give some kind of reason, and half the time it'll just be the skull.
Yeah.
Or half the time it'll be the 100, but sometimes it might be different.
I like the trademark emoji, because that's useful sometimes.
For trademarking stuff.
Yeah.
I like trading marks.
I should do more with the bowl of rice emoji.
Dude, like what?
Symbolize rice.
Yeah, but I mean, how much more can you do with that? You would have to eat a lot of rice-based cuisines.
No, I would just have to like symbolize rice frequently.
This is symbolic of rice.
What I find interesting are like
Indicative of the concept.
there's like that weird ghost emoji with the tongue sticking out, and then there's like
He's a friendly ghost. The friendliest ghost you know?
and then there's like an Oni mask or like a Kabuki mask emoji, and I'm just thinking, how often do you need to refer to Kabuki theater?
Frequently.
I need to symbolize rice way more often than I need to refer directly to Kabuki theater.
You're a Kabuki theater.
And I do appreciate there are two different whales, a baleen whale and something that vaguely looks like a sperm whale.
Yeah. You know, just in case you... I don't know how they chose these. At least Hear No Evil, See No Evil, Speak No Evil has a theme and a monkey, but
Yeah.
the rest of these I'm like, I don't know how these got to be the ones that y'all chose. But whatever, it works. Oh, I'm getting tired. It's been a long day. Yeah. Those are our emojis. Thanks for listening to the Emoji Hour.
The emoji zone.
The emoji. So this is like beta testing round 2.
Yeah.
Figuring out what to do.
So, we thank you for joining us on this grab bag episode.
Grab bag. Grab swag from the grab bag.
Yeah. I think that's a good pot of stuff. We talked about some alonage, we talked about some TV-age.
Yeah, you know.
Stuff went down, went all around. Jump up
and down, and move it all around. Put your hands to the sound, put your hands in the ground.
So once again, I am Aaron.
I am Jerry.
And we're dank.
We're dank.
And you should be dank too.
You should be dank all the time.
Yeah.
Everyone should be dank.
Everyone should just constantly have a layer of moisture on their body.
Yeah, just stand under one of those like tents with the misters.
Yeah.
Like at theme parks and events in the park.
I mean, it's been hot.
It has been hot.
It's been hot, but it has not been hot in Antelope Valley. There were... Which is bizarre, because the place looks so damn deserty, but being up there this past weekend, it's August, and as soon as the sun went down, it would just become freezing and windy.
A ghost.
A ghost. A ghost.
A ghost.
Maybe that's where the name for August came from.
It's the ghost month.
Yeah, it's the month of ghosts.
It's the time when most spirits rise from the grave.
This was originally going to be the month of Halloween, but then they had to change things because of the Depression.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I like October for Halloween.
Yeah, October's a good time for Halloween.
Yeah.
It's pumpkin time.
I, Jack, the Pumpkin King,
who is now
grown very weary of the sound of screams.
Jack, by the way, is going to be towed around by drones at Disneyland, apparently.
What?
Yeah, Disneyland apparently
That's scary.
I know. Disneyland now has drones to operate marionettes from the sky.
So, I don't know how I feel about drones in popular society.
Let's get real. Drones were going to come to Disneyland eventually. Like, Disneyland's bread and butter has been like being very creepy and surveillance-y and invasive. That's been Disney's...
Welcome to Surveillance Land.
Exactly. Like, that's been Disneyland since day uno. So let's just... Of course drones were going to come.
Switching languages on a dime. You're crazy, man.
Well, I'm sorry, man. That's just, that's just me dealing with the Geworfenheit.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. I'm gonna get out my German dictionary right now and try. Just gonna try. I don't know what I'm gonna try, but I'm just gonna try right now. Let's try hard and cry hard.
That would be the best Die Hard sequel. It'd be Cry Hard, and it would just be a retrospective episode after John McClane's funeral.
Where it's right before John McClane's death, where he realized that lately he's been a dick.
Yeah.
He's like, wow, I fucked up most of Russia and just gave nary a fuck about it.
It's just him trying to patch things up with his family without violence.
And yet again, everyone's like, we want to be called Gennaro. We're not McClane's. Like, that's been the plot for so long now. Just people not wanting to be McClane's, man. And he's not even McClane anymore. He's just grumpy Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Bruce Willis? That's right. Bending.
That was my favorite Gary Oldman line.
Oh, yeah, dude.
When he said that in Dracula.
You're a wizard, Olaf.
uh,
Said Ultron. It's like fuckifying a meme.
I just love those memes that are just pureed out of a bunch of different memes.
Yeah, where it's that always tickles me. Any iteration of that where it's just like a picture of like Sir Patrick Stewart, and then it says like "You're a wizard, Frodo," and then it credits that to like Gandalf or something.
Yeah. Good shit.
Darth Vader. I don't know. Anyhow.
Anywho.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us.
As we probe and figure shit out,
yeah.
as the Canadians might say.
And thank you for leaving us.
Yeah. Coming as you are, as you were, as I want you to be. And now, accepting that the end is near.
Yeah.
For now.
For now.
But the end will always begin again in the beginning next time.
On Lost. Once again,
keep entering those numbers and hitting enter, Mr. Echo.
Once again, I am Aaron.
And I am Gerald.
And remember, kids.
Stay frank.
Dank.
Mank.
Mank.
Ben Mank.
Tank. Stay Pat Jankowitz.